And Jean and Susan, will, if you'll just indicate when you want your next slide, I'll do that for you.
Oh, sure.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pass those back.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your help this morning.
All right, you ready to go?
Thank you. Let's see.
Reggie, are we ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, who's kicking it off? Meg?
Yeah.
Or Reggie? Yeah.
I'm ready now. So good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us at the second Virtual Learning Advisory Committee meeting of the year. We certainly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to join us. I'm Meg Foley with my colleague, Mr. Reggie Fox, and we're the two virtual learning specialists at the DOE. In these unprecedented times, virtual learning has certainly come to the forefront of education. Virtual learning can increase student engagement, increase student achievement, and increase student choice and voice. So as a committee, we have important work to accomplish and discuss. Normally, during a face-to-face meeting at this time, I would be sharing facility logistics. However, as many of our educators, students, and indeed families are learning that virtual is a little bit different. So at this time, I would like to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Mr. Reggie Fox, so he may discuss virtual meeting protocols. Reggie?
Thank you, Meg. Good morning to everyone again. And as you can see on the screen, we do have the setting to allow you to unmute yourselves, but if we'll have everyone mute until you're ready to speak, that will help us avoid and eliminate any feedback. And committee members, if you want to get our attention at any time, of course, use the raise hand feature. You're invited to post questions or comments in the chat area as you wish. Those of you who may be on the phone, you may use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise your hand. And we do have a public viewing today, thanks to Kevin in our Virginia Department of Ed, who has provided our YouTube channel, and those questions and comments may be submitted to our mailbox until October 8th, virtual programs at doe.virginia.gov. And we're happy to have all of you today. As Meg welcomed you, we have a variety of folks representing different agencies, superintendents from our Virginia department, and those that you see on the screen. And we weren't going to take the time to have you introduce yourselves, but I've listed all of the committee members, yes, on the screen. So we again welcome you. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Those from the Virginia Department of Education. Of course, leading us is our State Superintendent, Dr. James Lane. All of our division superintendents, we do have one superintendent from each region representing, or the designee, and we wanted to acknowledge you all as well and welcome you and thank you for being here, as well as those from our organizations and agencies. So Dr. Lane, at this time, I'll stop sharing and turn the meeting over to you.
All right, thanks, Reggie. Appreciate it, and great to see everyone today. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. But again, a big thank you to everyone for spending some time with us today. I was going to talk today a little bit about what's going on in virtual learning broadly at the Department of Education and around the Commonwealth, and look forward to hearing continued advice from the committee. Let's see here. So we try to start every presentation with some information about the new vision and mission and goals that we've set at the department, along with our new strategic plan, which we call Drive 2025, the design to reach every student and innovate Virginia education. We set a new mission that we're focused on maximum potential, which I think is a novel enhancement for the department, because many people would think of the department as the place that's around standards and compliance and grade level assessments, and we're thinking about maximizing potential and growth and changing our focus at the agency. And how we will do that is by advancing equitable and innovative learning. Three simple goals at our department. One is to ensure student success, make sure every classroom has a great teacher, and ensure that the Department of Education has a climate that supports our employees. So that's just a little bit about us, but I wanted you to know that how important we think innovation is in the context of today's challenges in education. I think that Virginia was uniquely positioned with this unfortunate pandemic to be prepared for virtual learning in some ways, and then uniquely positioned to struggle in other ways. We often think of to have a successful virtual program, essentially there are three basic components that must be there from the beginning. One is access to the internet, two is access to a device, and three is access to content through a learning management system or some other platform. I think we were really well positioned in Virginia with the learning management system and the content side. I think that we were better positioned than a lot of states in having devices in students' hands with the number of one-to-one school districts we had. But I think that our best opportunity for growth, and you've seen us invest a lot of money in this, is making sure that families have access to the internet at the location that their student is learning. And obviously, huge kudos to the team. All of our schools have strong broadband and meet FCC standards, but obviously in our students' homes, that continues to be a challenge. And so, that is the elephant in the room, right? The elephant in the room is that this pandemic is significantly impacting our students' progress. It's forced nearly 80% of our students to be learning virtual on a daily basis. It's probably more than that when you think that some of the students, even in the hybrid schedules, could be in a remote setting. And there are huge equity issues at play with virtual learning, and that those students that have access to each of those three things that I mentioned before obviously have a leg up on students that do not. And even schools where the teachers have access to those three things to be able to deliver instruction have a leg up on other students who may not be able to get daily synchronous instruction from their teachers. And so we're thinking constantly at the state level around how we can provide those equity factors in the context of virtual learning, while understanding that as conditions improve and when it is safe, we're obviously hoping to see more and more students learning in person. But even in the in-person setting, I think you can anticipate that there will be a significant amount of virtual learning that will supplement that on the non-hybrid days, if you will. And so this need to focus on equity is ever more important. And one of the things that we're constantly talking about at the department is, you know, equity used to be defined as giving every child what they need at the time that they need it. At the department, we've really reshaped our definition to have equity being about the inability to predict outcomes for students, and that giving every student what they need at the time that they need it is the input to get to that outcome that we want for all students. And so this is an especially important time to be thinking about that our most vulnerable students, our students with disabilities, English language learners, students living in poverty, students without the internet, may need to be receiving extra services and extra supports during this time, especially to make sure that they're not getting further behind. You saw me speak last week at UVA. We shared this slide for the first time there that, you know, obviously we have to credit to others, but what's important for you to know is that for low income, African American and Hispanic students, learning loss is likely going to be significantly greater because of the circumstances that are happening in certain communities, especially in communities that have higher percentages of students living in poverty and from diverse backgrounds. And so you can see this bar chart, you know, essentially the quality level of remote instruction, right? Overall, you know, about a third of our students are receiving average and above average remote instruction based on this study. Nearly 50% are receiving some type of what we would call low quality remote instruction. Maybe that's just asynchronous or packets or something like that. And of course, this is probably based on data from the spring. This has obviously improved since then. And then there was a significant number of students during the spring that received no instruction. And so what you can see here, though, is that based on your background, especially students living in poverty, they were more likely to receive the lower quality or no effective instruction during the school closure than students that were maybe of higher wealth or not from diverse backgrounds. And so that translated into ranges of learning loss, right? And so you can see that overall, during this time, students may have lost, say, 6.8 months of learning on average, that our communities in poverty and our African American students may have lost far more than that, and potentially students in poverty losing as much of as a year with what we faced during this pandemic. But let's talk about how that compounds over time, right? This is actually a more traditional viewpoint on how learning looks, right? When you look at this very linearly, point to point, it may not look that different. But what really happens in a school year is students make extreme growth from fall to spring. Schools work, right? We make students better at what they need to know. But then from spring to fall, that, in other words, is summer, we see some recidivism, especially in communities of high poverty where learning does not continue in the summer. And then you see that that trend over time that's a little bit more jagged, where kids are growing during the year and receding during the summer, and growing during the year and receding during the summer. That's pretty typical. And that's how growth tends to look, right? And those arrows are pointing at those summer moments. Now, on this next slide, it's going to begin drawing for you what this may look like in this pandemic now, and how this may be a little bit different, right? And so this is a typical fourth grade student. Again, you would see them grow during the year and some recidivism during the summer. That's what we saw on the last slide. And in fifth grade and so on and so forth. Now, when we implemented the school closure in March, you can see that to the end of the year, that student started to recede in their growth. And you can see that that recession continued into September. Now, beyond September, we're not closed anymore. We're open, and we're open in these multiple settings. What could happen to this student now that we're open in these new and different ways? Well, you'll see here, we'll draw in what an in-person, what a hybrid, and what a fully virtual will look like. And you'll see that if a student comes in person, that, you know, they're still not back to where they would have been if we never closed, but you can see that they're growing at a rate that would be otherwise similar. Even in hybrid, where a portion of the learning is asynchronous and some of it's in person, it's still not effective as fully in person. And you can see that they're not growing at the rate that they would have, and that virtual potentially has similar components. Now, this is an illustration. This isn't based on research. And then you can see the summer slide there that occurs. So it's really important during this time. This isn't intended to be an encouragement that you go in person or an encouragement that you go hybrid, but what it is intended to do is show you that the modality choice that you make could have down road impacts on students. And it's important that we're putting extra strategies in place, especially for those students that are more vulnerable, so that we don't permanently see learning loss throughout their school career. And so that compounding over time takes the equity issue that was already in place and makes it a lot more difficult. And so what we need to focus on is not just which modality we're moving to, but also how we can make the quality of instruction that's happening in the virtual space between those times that students get in-person instruction and make sure it's highly effective. And the more that we can do that, we have a graphic you may have seen us use before about plants and how they thrive, and that some plants need more water than others to thrive. Plants in the desert don't need as much water as a plant in potentially a rainforest. And so making sure that we're giving our students more resources and supports like those plants that need more water is essential to our equity focus. And so to make sure that we can maximize student potential as much as possible in this virtual time, we've significantly invested in Virtual Virginia as our predominant solution. Here are some of the big things that we did. Brian is going to go into this in way more detail in his presentation, but we now have 90% of school divisions impacted by Virtual Virginia in some way through the numerous projects that Brian's going to describe to you in more detail. At the state level, we focused on 4 major investments. First, we put several $1 million in through the GEAR fund and the ESSER set aside to make sure that a learning management system was provided to every school division in the Commonwealth at no cost if they didn't already have a learning management system that they were happy with. And now we're happy to report that you know, there is a solution for every school division to handle that third bucket of the 3 necessary things to be successful in virtual learning. We rolled out course content K through 12 for free. Most of that was released just before the school year so that all of our teachers that are teaching in a virtual setting have content that they could access to teach their courses. We invested some of our state money from CARES to create asynchronous courses that in the future can then be used as credit recovery solutions for school divisions for free, and all of those courses will be completed by the end of the calendar year. But probably one of the biggest things that we did is we dropped a significant amount of money into the actual traditional Virtual Virginia program, where Virtual Virginia provides teachers to teach courses to schools, and we doubled our enrollment from 6,000 kids to 12,000 kids in Virtual Virginia that can access courses without the school divisions having to pay a tuition using Virtual Virginia teachers. The first one is about our school divisions, right? We provided a learning management system so school divisions could use their teachers to teach in Virtual Virginia, but we actually also doubled the size of the teachers in Virtual Virginia that can teach courses to our students. And then obviously once we hit that next cap, school divisions can pay tuition as they have in the past, but we wanted to make that free as long as possible for this year, and Brian will talk you through. I think we're already nearing the cap of the 12,000 enrollments which is incredible to think how quickly they were able to double the size of the program. And so I'll just wrap up with a quote: learning and innovation go hand in hand. The arrogance of success is to think what you did yesterday will be sufficient for tomorrow, right? Every day we're learning more and more about ourselves in this pandemic, and we've got to continue to evolve. We have to continue to make virtual learning better. We have to continue to make asynchronous learning better for the days that the students aren't in school. We've got to be much more effective during the days that students are there if we're in a hybrid schedule. And if we're able to do synchronous virtual instruction, we've got to continue to make that engaging and keep kids excited and learning. So I'll wrap with just a thank you to everyone that's on this call. You have a huge hand in the success of virtual learning around the Commonwealth. There are numerous people from the DOE, Virtual Virginia, WHRO, superintendents on this call, and we could not have done this without you. I didn't mention all the work that we did in TV-based instruction and radio-based instruction because this is focused on virtual, but the innovative and creative solutions to get students in education during this time has been impressive. And so thank you. I know we all look forward to getting kids back in person when it's safe and when the conditions are right. But Virginia has been well positioned to be a leader in virtual learning, and that's because of your efforts. So thank you all so much, and thank you for giving me a few moments to say hello today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lane. And let me just get my screen back up here. And we will introduce Michael Bolin.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate Dr. Lane's words and outlining the importance of innovation at this time. I think that as I reflect, we've been trying to build up the supports for virtual learning for years. Boy, did this really accelerate our timeline. And now all of a sudden we have tons of teachers that have accelerated their timeline and their learning curve. And it's really tremendous. As I've visited schools and I've seen teachers teaching in empty classrooms virtually, and then some hybrid, it's really amazing, and some both. So some were teaching with kids face to face and on the computer, and it's really amazing what everyone has been able to do and how we've been able to pivot. I'm really excited for this meeting today, and the purpose of this committee continues to be to provide input and in an advisory capacity for the Department of Education, but also for the state. And this has really expanded, emphasized how important our efforts are in this area. You're going to hear, you saw on the agenda today, you're going to hear from a number of different groups. There have been so many great efforts to get us to where we are now, and you're going to hear a lot about those from, from Dr. Mott and Dr. Pivarena and others, including Dr. Foley and Reggie and Susan Clare, and all of the work that's gone through the Department of Ed, but also we're going to hear from you all and to get advice from you all towards the end of the meeting in our breakout discussions about next steps going forward. So I really can't tell you how much how important this group is to our strategic planning for the future, and I really appreciate you all being here today.
Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Brian Mott.
Thank you, Reggie. Good morning, everybody. I will begin sharing my screen here. Give me a second. There we go. Let me get that straightened out. Traditionally in the fall meeting, Virtual Virginia, we report on the previous year, and we talk about all the things that happened as far as enrollment and the initiatives and the growth we've had as a program. But it's really important for us to bookend some information this year about what's happening currently. And normally we don't do that, like I said, in this fall meeting. But with the importance of everybody being fully virtual, hybrid, or in some capacity in person to start the school year, I want to highlight some of the things that Virtual Virginia has a hand in supporting school divisions. As mentioned, we have increased, literally doubled our capacity on the number of free student enrollments in Virtual Virginia instructed courses this year. That reflects not only the investment in the program, but also the needs of divisions as they are turning to virtual learning as an option. And trusting Virtual Virginia, we have filled all of those seats. We are sliding a few in as people phone us and have requests, but it's really a reflection of the need of divisions in the fall, and we're going to reevaluate in the spring and try to make those more seats available if possible. We've also offered our virtual learning platform available to school divisions. They can now integrate with the learning management system to create courses. They can have a grade pass back from the learning management system to your student information system locally. So that seamless integration was important, and we were able to accomplish that over the summer for many divisions across the Commonwealth. As mentioned, we created content. You can have a great platform, but you have to have content to populate that platform. And we know that teachers across the state are creating content. Teachers really want to do a good job. We've seen some amazing things, but sometimes they just need a starting place, or they need a few lessons here and there. So Virtual Virginia did create content K through 12, has made it widely available across the state. And that content isn't static. We want to encourage teachers to change it, to add in some of the things they've created, to modify that content, and then be able to share that back if they'd like. And the learning management system is robust. This platform needed to work, and it needed to be capable of doing a number of things for divisions as we go forward. So the platform is available for schools to curate and create content. As I mentioned earlier, they can change Virtual Virginia content, and then they can share instructional materials with one another. Some of the divisions here on the committee, I know we're sharing content back and forth with you all pretty frequently. So we're really encouraged by some of that, especially early in the fall, some of the abilities we've seen of the platform, but also some of the willingness of divisions to go out there, get materials, make high quality instruction possible, and then share back what they're learning and what they're using across the state. And again, all of this is available at no cost to divisions. All of the expansion that we've talked about so far today, through CARES Act and through our existing appropriation, we were able to accomplish this at no cost to the divisions. Again, I'll reference some of what we're doing again this year in just a moment, but everybody typically likes to see, the update on what happened last year and the growth of the Virtual Virginia experience. Again, there are 4 program areas at Virtual Virginia. The first is called the Complementary Program, and these are courses taught by Virtual Virginia instructors who are Virginia public educators across the Commonwealth. Last year, Virtual Virginia offered 81 courses in grades 6 through 12. The Outreach Program, and this is where we've experienced the biggest growth at Virtual Virginia. This is where we make our resources available to public school divisions and our platform available. And again, schools have the opportunity to go in, create courses, remix content, create their own content, and then share it back or share it internally with other teachers in their division. Virtual Virginia does professional learning. Last year, we had 26 formal offerings in professional learning. And of course, our summer session. We just wrapped a summer session at Virtual Virginia, and I'll get into some of that growth here in just a moment. And we were able to offer 52 courses during that time. And we talk about the investment in Virtual Virginia. A lot of it has to do with where we've gone over the last 3 years. The Complementary Program, again, these are the courses that are instructed by Virtual Virginia teachers, developed by Virginia educators, taught in both synchronous and asynchronous modalities. You can see the growth there. This is typically we have a small growth every year, but last year we experienced quite a bit of growth in this program by being flexible and making more options available for divisions to get their learners enrolled in these courses. The Outreach Program, again, these are the content that we make available to divisions, the platform that we make available to divisions. You can see the incredible growth there last year. That reflects the need of divisions as well. A lot of that growth was in the spring, but a lot of it was prior to March 13th and prior to the extended school closure. So you can see the real need in the Commonwealth in that area. Professional learning. This is one where we experienced dramatic growth. And again, these are a wide range, varied offerings. It could be, instruction in blended learning, workshops on how to teach virtually, even supporting initiatives like the Go Open project. The professional learning for that was built on Virtual Virginia. You can see the dramatic growth we had in the professional learning program last year at Virtual Virginia. And as I mentioned, we do have some 2020 data. We just wrapped our summer session. And again, we did offer 52 courses last year. These are all instructed by Virginia public educators. These courses are created by Virginia public educators, taught in both synchronous and asynchronous modalities. You can see that the growth compared to summer 2019 and the summer we just wrapped, nearly doubled. Actually, it did over double in summer session last year. So that's our first piece of data that we can glean from in the 2020 era. Enrollment has increased significantly on an already growing spectrum. So we're kind of excited to see what the 2020-2021 school year holds at Virtual Virginia. We have some early data from the fall enrollment. And in the spring, we'll report that full 2021 data. But for right now, this is our first piece. And the initial results are that enrollment will continue to increase at a pretty dramatic rate in the program. And the overall aggregate enrollment is pretty remarkable from last year. For the first time, we did increase and hit 100,000 program enrollments. And again, that's reflected of largely a growth in the outreach and professional learning programs, and slight growth in the complementary program as well. So what does that mean for this year? As I mentioned, we have these 4 programs. All of them are growing in their offerings as well. The complementary program is going from 81 to 104 offerings. So we're making more courses available that are taught by Virtual Virginia educators. The outreach is still at 107, but that program has grown in its capacity and what it's able to afford divisions, and I'll highlight that in just a moment. Professional learning, it was 25 offerings last year. It's now 125 plus. It's really becoming almost difficult to keep up with the amount of offerings that we're having at Virtual Virginia because they're evolving and they're happening more and more frequently. And of course, as I mentioned, we did offer 52, and we've highlighted the summer session growth already in our summer session offerings. Let's talk a little bit about the outreach and how it's growing to help students and helps educators across the Commonwealth. The outreach, as we expand, again, this is making the Virtual Virginia LMS available to school divisions, providing content K through 12 on the platform, and then providing professional learning for these educators and training to support them as they deploy both hybrid, virtual, and other modalities of instruction. And also as school divisions transition to face-to-face, hopefully in the future, as it becomes safe, how do we ensure learning is parallel? How do we ensure and support schools that are trying to do in-person learning and fully virtual learning to make sure that those students are receiving the same high quality instruction? What role does Virtual Virginia have in supporting divisions there? So we feel that you first have to have the learning management system. You have to have access to your own instance of the learning management system. And over 100 divisions have taken advantage of that in Virginia thus far in the 2020-21 school year. We have to have support. So Virtual Virginia has dedicated support teams that are helping divisions and training them and getting their administrators up to speed on what the capabilities are of having the learning management system in the division. You have to have content, as we mentioned earlier, and Virtual Virginia has created K through 12 content and made it available on the learning management system. And you have to have training throughout the year. You have to train the teachers, you have to train ITRTs, you have to train all the division personnel on what the LMS is, what it can do, and how it supports each division's unique needs. As I mentioned earlier, over 100 divisions have taken advantage of it, of the outreach program. As of last count, it is now 126 plus divisions have taken advantage of the program in some capacity. And again, that is overwhelming. It exceeded our expectation, but we look forward to continuing to support all divisions and then hopefully bringing them onto this program as well. And what has it resulted in? Like I said, we have some early data so far for this school year. So far, of the content we've created on the platform, made it available, over 22,000 unique course downloads in the learning management system. That has by far exceeded our expectation. We had actually planned for potentially 10,000 in the first year. It's already double that in September. So we are seeing a lot of usage. We're seeing fairly quick adoption. Obviously, some school divisions started in early August. They're ahead of other divisions, and we've seen very positive results in those early divisions, even divisions that have only been in for a couple of weeks now in late September. We're seeing some really, really amazing things that teachers are doing on the platform. And there's different types of implementation methods that the divisions are using. Many are all in and using the learning management system, using the content to start the fall semester. Some are phasing it in. They're using it in certain pockets. Many are using a multi-platform approach where they're using the Virtual Virginia system in addition to local solutions, and kind of putting it all together. And that's great because the learning management system can support that. Some divisions have had a learning management system and they're using that solution and Virtual Virginia solution side by side, and then making a decision at a later time. And some have implemented, they've done the technical piece now. They're going to start with what they have, kind of evaluate their plans as they go through the fall, and then making a decision on how to deploy it, maybe at the spring or at the semester turn, or maybe even for summer next year. So we're seeing divisions use it in a lot of different ways, and that's okay. We're going to support them in whatever method they choose. And again, as a few people touched on already, we have many projects coming up, some exciting things, and we know they're going to fill some needs coming right around the corner here. The first is credit recovery. Virtual Virginia, where we've begun credit recovery in grades 7 through 12. And those are going to be available via the outreach program. Again, no cost to the division. We're going to make those available probably early winter, where we're ahead of time on that development there. Asynchronous courses, those are self-paced courses, and those are scheduled for the initial release in about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. The first pieces of those courses are going to be released. We are creating more courses. We are creating more outreach and complementary courses in preparation for the next summer session. And of course, professional learning. When we talk about programs such as the outreach program, just a small piece of that is technical. Most of it is professional learning and making sure teachers are comfortable to deploy these resources and use these platforms. So Virtual Virginia will greatly expand our professional learning network in 2020, 2021 to include more educators. We feel like that's really going to be a cornerstone of how we move forward with hybrid and virtual models, and even face-to-face, as I mentioned earlier, how to ensure that there is parallel learning between those different modalities. We're going to be there to support teachers and support educators and support school division personnel because we feel like that is the most critical piece, is to ensure there isn't much learning loss or to try to mitigate some of that learning loss if we can. And again, I thank you for everybody here. I'm interested to get to the breakouts in just a bit and hear what your experiences are. Virtual Virginia, we thrive on being the partner of public school divisions. We need to hear, we get constant input. So I'm interested today to hear from this committee and your leadership on virtual learning in the Commonwealth.
Okay, I think I'm up next, right, Reggie?
Yes, I'm going to pull
So
that
the
up.
next section, next couple of slides are based upon the Virtual Virginia survey results report, and that was actually created by Dr. Jen Pivarena. We weren't sure she was going to be able to join us today, so I'm actually going to speak about the next couple slides, and she can chime in and correct me if need be, Jen. And the full Word document was emailed earlier with the meeting reminder. So these are just a few little highlights for the meeting. So as the slide indicates, for the 2019-2020 school year, the #1 reason for taking a Virtual Virginia course provided by both the student and parent groups was to get ahead, whereas the least chosen response was to raise a previous grade. Interestingly, the #1 reason for participating in Virtual Virginia for students the previous school year was the course was not offered at school. So I'm not sure exactly which courses were chosen or not, but that might be in that full report. But that was interesting to me. Next, Reggie. In this slide, Dr. Pivarena highlighted the fact that over 90% of student respondents agreed that they had time management skills, the responsibility, and the self-direction necessary to succeed in their virtual courses. And I think that's great that they were able to self-reflect about what made them successful. Reggie, thank you. As this slide illustrates, survey results indicated the vast majority of parents or guardians perceive the content of the course quality is good and the level of challenge to be appropriate for their students who were learning virtually. In her analysis, Dr. Pivarena highlighted the fact that a majority of students indicated that they were able to receive the needed help. Their instructors communicated regarding progress and responded to questions within 24 hours, and that their school-based mentor regularly checked in on their progress. So the communication support was definitely seen by the students. Reggie? And the last slide is just more about online learning. And as the slide illustrates, 88% of students would take another online course. And an overwhelming 95% of staff felt the Virtual Virginia program afforded a positive online experience. So I think that those results really are indicative of the quality that people are seeing, both students and adults associated with the Virtual Virginia program. Jen, if you want to chime in on anything that I've said, here's your chance.
Thanks, Meg. I think you did a great job, and I'm going to invite you to all my presentations in the future to speak for me. Thank you. I have nothing to add to that.
Well, thank you. I was afraid I made a mistake. I'm like, oh, Jen's here. So wonderful. Excellent. So next up is Dr. Susan Clare discussing technical updates and grants. Susan?
Actually,
Oh.
Michael.
I'm sorry. I thought it was Susan next. Sorry, Michael.
Oh, it's not a problem at all. Thanks, Meg. You know, I keep thinking back to that slide that Dr. Lane showed with the slide for the different types of modalities of learning. And I noticed that the red one was the lowest on the virtual learning in the slide. And I really hope that all of our efforts in this area is going to help change that. I know that all students are not 100% comfortable in a virtual setting. Having opened up Code RVA Regional High School, I will say that that was one of the, it was a blended learning school. And one of the biggest reasons for kids to leave the school is they just didn't feel comfortable in with how much virtual learning there was in it. So there is a learning curve, and as students get better at it, and as teachers get better at it, and we provide professional development, which is what I was going to talk about in this section, I do think that we're going to see that curve really improve. That red one maybe turn even a different color and not be quite as steep in the negative direction, because I do think that virtual learning is a major part of the future of education in not only Virginia, but the nation. The Department of Education over the past number of months has been working in a number of areas to really support the infrastructure for a new and innovative educational work environment and learning environment. And that includes starting with working on flexibilities in some of our policies and regulations, and helping support innovation in school divisions, including in areas like how do we take attendance and provide some guidance in those areas. And we've been really excited to do that work. I just came on board to this job in January, and probably one of the best things that ever happened for me in the transition to this job was the real focus on having to go back through all of our policies, almost every single one of them, it feels like, and really reflect on the effectiveness and then how they may have to change or provide for temporary flexibility in our current situation. At the same time, we've been working a great deal to support virtual learning, and not only through funding, but also through the development of a virtual learning hub, we're calling it. And so we, Meg and Reggie will be sharing that in just a few minutes, but also through different types of funding sources. So for instance, right now, the Department of Education is in the final throes of putting together grant award notifications for all divisions statewide that applied for 9 buckets of money that was available, and this is CARES Act funding, to support many different aspects of not only virtual learning, but just our new world and some of the losses that are associated with the pandemic. A couple of those buckets include the Vision Grant, which is about $18 million going to school divisions to support devices, MiFi, and other areas, and also instructional delivery support, so any kind of professional learning and some other things, as well as the Summer Academic Success, and then funds for PPE and other areas. So those awards, I believe, will be going out sometime in early October, and we're excited about being able to provide those supports. And you'll be hearing more about that. But a part of those funds were set aside to help build up the statewide focus on professional development in virtual and blended learning. And so we're currently in the process of working with an IHE partner to develop some professional development for statewide, for the whole state, for anyone that wants it, in effective practices in virtual learning. And so right now we're in the throes of kind of tweaking on in what order they're developed. For instance, since school divisions have already been implementing virtual instruction, now I think we need to focus on things like it's not how to develop your course as much right this minute as it is on how to do classroom management. And so we're going to try to roll out some of these really timely professional developments modules as soon as possible. And so we're starting to work on that now, and been working on it for a little while. But we're really excited about all the work, and you're going to hear a little bit more about the Virtual Learning Hub in just a few minutes, or actually now, from Meg. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was a great lead-in because we are excited that on the front page of our Virginia Department of Education site is the Virtual Teaching and Learning Hub. When you go there, you'll see that we designed this to be in three major areas, and that is continuing to support that first area. Virtual learning and blended learning is included as well. And then the planning and the implementation, as Michael mentioned, the management, what you do, those best practices. And then the third component is professional learning and professional development for our educators. And really this concept came as a vision of Dr. Foley, Meg Foley, to bring all of this into one area on our site, because we had many different places that you could visit to get information and resources on blended and virtual learning. But we wanted to consolidate that into one area. And so we've included best practices and models and assessment examples and videos. And we've looked at the areas of feedback and voice and choice and digital citizenship so that we can continue to provide support as teachers and students and administrators are in the thrust of providing virtual learning right now. So many of those things to help support those areas are up on this site. And in our professional learning area, as Michael said, we want to expand that, have that ongoing as we work with partners and create a network all across the state of those educators so that they can contribute. They have a place for conversation and supporting each other. And so this information has been communicated in a superintendent's email and has been published in various emails to instructional and information technology leaders. We'll continue to promote this and in our various meetings. And so we look forward to you using this. Right on the front page of our Virginia Department of Ed site, you'll find this hub listed, and we hope that you'll spread the word throughout your divisions as well, and any meetings that you have to promote this. So we appreciate your support with that. And I'll turn it over to Meg.
Okay, so the next section, let me see, make sure that I'm on. Yep, I am. Okay. So the next couple slides focus on the multi-division online provider program. And this slide is, why a MOP program? And Reggie and I actually get this question a lot. And oftentimes it's, well, we have Virtual Virginia. Why do we have to have a MOP program as well? And the short answer is that the MOP program is required by the Code of Virginia. So the exact section of the code and the descriptive information is referenced here on this slide for you. Reggie? So what is a MOP? So the multi-division online provider, or MOP as we call it for short, is a local school board or a private or nonprofit organization that provides online courses or programs to students in multiple public school divisions in Virginia. It's important to note that to be functioning as a MOP, the MOP provider must be providing both the content that's digital and the teacher. So a MOP may not just provide teachers to a school division. A MOP could provide just digital content, but then they're not functioning as a MOP. So it's important to remember that a MOP is when there's a combination of both the digital content and the virtual teacher. So a provider must apply to become a MOP. And as the image on the slide illustrates, there are 4 main areas addressed within the application. So the first one is curriculum. The second is instructors. The third is organization of the provider. And then the fourth one is the platform considerations. So as they apply, they will answer questions in each of those 4 sections. Reggie, thank you. So our current MOP information, as far as the last school year, was we had 19 active MOPs that were providing services. We had 165 courses submitted. Of the courses, 52 were SOL related, 24 were CTE related, and 89 were electives. Out of the courses, 159 were approved. So if you have any information about the Hub or Virtual Virginia and or the MOP program, here's the contact information for Reggie and I. And of course, you can always reach out to Brian Mott too for Virtual Virginia. And next up is Susan Clare. So Dr. Susan Clare is going to talk about technology updates and grants. So Susan.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Clare, and my role here at the department is to provide support, resources, and outreach to 132 of our school division technology leaders. And it's a privilege to be in this position to, at this time, as we kind of move through the uncertainties and the disruptions in education. So back in April, we received a substantial amount of money from the U.S. Department of Education in the form of the CARES Act, which Michael mentioned in his presentation. And the other funding stream was this GEARS grant funds, the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Funds. And what we did was Dr. Lane wanted to make sure that our schools were prepared for the transition from face-to-face instruction to remote learning. And we needed to provide some support, funding support for the technology infrastructure to support these initiatives. So it is a Virginia initiative to support internet outside of school networks, otherwise known as the Vision Grant. And one of the things you have to understand is that we've moved totally online, and we've done it at a very quick pace, which is mostly unprecedented in education. We typically do not move that quickly. However, I did see school divisions mobilize very quickly to get the technology infrastructure in place. We'll talk about the implications of that in a minute. But there was a little less than 18 million available for divisions, and these were competitive grants. So we had 116 out of 132 school divisions apply for these vision grants. And the eligible technologies we identified were computing devices, LTE mobile data plans, hotspots, filtering, that's content filtering for the web, device management, other technologies that expand Wi-Fi into the community. And so there were 7 evaluators that evaluated these competitive grants, And you will be getting a superintendent's award memo on October 2nd that will give you the amount of the award that your division will be granted as a result of the vision initiative. Next slide, please, Reg. All right, so in thinking about how these grants will impact on education and virtual learning, one of the very significant things that I'm seeing, and I hope all of you recognize this because it's like crystal clear right now, and that is that almost all of our students in Virginia are going to get a computing device that never had one before. So they're going to have one to take home. Now that moves, I would say, about, all of our school divisions to one-to-one computing device programs. Now just keep that in mind for a minute. The next impact we're going to see is that most, not all of our students, because we do have students that live in very rural areas that simply don't have broadband. In other words, there's no fiber in the ground up in Southwest Virginia and mountainous areas, or even Southside Virginia and very rural areas. There's no fiber in the ground, so there's a lot of residential areas that do not have internet access. But there is LTE mobile carrier access. And we're seeing a significant amount of students receiving these hotspots. Or they're called hotspots, they're called Wi-Fi, they're called jetpacks, whatever you want to call them. It's a little device that connects to an LTE mobile carrier Wi-Fi tower somewhere in the area. That is Verizon, owned by Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and then US Cellular in some areas of Virginia. So these students don't have high-speed internet access via fiber in the home, then schools transition to providing these LTE mobile carrier hotspots with a data plan. And then, so the next transition or initiative that a lot of schools are taking is we have to understand that there are families out there that simply cannot afford internet access because of their low income status or the other priorities they have in their life. So we do have some school divisions that are providing these low cost internet programs to the home. That's could be Cox Connect to Compete, or could be Comcast Internet Essentials. And then we had some school divisions actually be very innovative in their thinking in terms of how they approach this issue. And they expanded Wi-Fi into areas of the community. They put these Wi-Fi hotspots on what we call them Wi-Fi on wheels, cellular services on wheels in different parts of the community. So the community, they don't have sufficient LTE or broadband, which is fiber to the home, can access these Wi-Fi on wheels in different areas of the community. And specifically, I can point out that Louisa County Public Schools actually built several of these Wi-Fi on wheels and just put them in different areas of the community, like a Food Lion parking lot and so forth, so the community could access Wi-Fi. So we've seen different strategies being deployed out there. And those would be the significant impacts on education and virtual learning. And then beyond COVID-19 benefits, we need to be thinking about the future of education. And I believe we're not going to totally go back to traditional face-to-face. We're going to get more innovative in our approaches. There's going to be emerging and evolving visions of how the future of education looks. And so beyond COVID-19 benefits, there's going to be, I think, support for hybrid, blended. What about snow day instruction? Think about if all your students have a device, they all have internet, or they have an option to go someplace where there's Wi-Fi. You may be able to say, you know what, I'm not having a snow day. Everybody has what they need to do virtual learning at home. So just think about that. So just another question I'd like for the school leaders that are on the call today to be thinking about this. As I mentioned, most of our students now have a computing device, right? They've got a Chromebook, they've got a tablet. They have internet of some form. They have high-speed broadband in the home, which is going to be your fiber to the home, or they have mobile LTE data plans that they're connecting through with the device. And then they have virtual learning, this awesome virtual learning program that we're talking about today. So a couple of questions for you to ponder, leaders, is now what is possible as a result of these new realities? What does the future of education look like? And also be thinking about this. Think about all the data that schools are now collecting as a result of students having mobile devices, data plans, and this virtual learning program. How are we going to use this data? What is this data going to tell us? Is it going to inform us? What kind of decision making processes can we use now that we're collecting all this data? So I thank you for your attention, and be thinking about those questions I just posed, and discuss those with your leaders in your division. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And we'll move on to Jean Weller.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to talk very briefly about open education resources, and then, of course, Go Open VA. One of the things we wanted to do in this presentation is talk a little bit about how OER impacts hybrid and virtual learning. As you know, VDOE is very serious about supporting teachers to provide student-centered, culturally responsive teaching, no matter what the medium used, whether it be virtual, face-to-face, hybrid, whatever. So in order to do that, we need to have some materials and some way for teachers to be able to do this easily, to be able to make their resources very personalized. So openly licensed resources provides that means for them teachers to be able to do this easily and quickly. So we have easy editing, note that all the resources are digital, just as we've been talking about with the virtual learning, so that they can be shared online or even downloaded and printed. So for those who do not have access to virtual learning, they have something in their hands. The lessons need not be the same for each student, because the teachers can provide the resources as needed to different groups or even to different individual students. And new recommended resources can be pushed out to students or to teachers, actually, very quickly and easily. So also with open education resources, there's no restrictions on flexibility, and I think that's probably one of the biggest strengths of OER. So Go Open VA as a system, what are the capabilities that you might want to know about? First of all, we have access through single sign-on or direct login. Single sign-on lets teachers not have another account that they have to log into. We also have LTI connections with school divisions' local LMSs and with Virtual Virginia's Canvas, so that teachers can seamlessly access Go Open VA resources from either of those positions. We also have a provision of spaces for sharing and collaborating, whether it be small or large groups. And our role is to encourage a mentor mentality amongst teachers, to share and work with other teachers, knowing that you're helping your fellow educators grow and explore new skills, which, as we all know, we're all in the same boat right now. We're all learning new skills, how we're handling education right now. So it's very helpful to have other people in the same boat with you and have that recognition that we're all struggling. One thing I do want to note, Go Open VA is teacher facing, meaning it's intended to be used directly by teachers. Although students can see the materials online because it is an open system, we don't generally focus in on those student facing resources. It really is for teachers. Okay, so I'm going to take us very briefly. Reggie, could I do that, or are we too late?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, it's not telling me I can share, or it's telling me I can't share. I should say that.
All right, I just changed it.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
All right, let's see. All right, so here's Go Open VA, and I just wanted to show you a couple of quick things that you might not have known about that we've gotten recently within our system. A couple of new providers. Some of you may have heard about New American History, which is Ed Ayers' group out of, I think it's U of R. But they have put up a lot of their history, which is focused in on marginal histories and has some excellent lesson plans. We also have the Virginia Geographic Alliance, which has put up a bunch of resources that they've created using interactive maps focused in on Virginia. So that's very nice too. That's a couple of new local providers that we have now. We also have a new, excuse me, did I click out? I must have clicked out. Are y'all still seeing the site?
No.
Nope.
And we're almost out of time, Jean. Sorry.
Okay, let me just do show one quick thing on Go Open VA, and that is that we do have a new collection from the Virginia K-12 Computer Science Pipeline. So they've just put up 10 resources, and we'll be having a lot more soon. So that's it.
Thank you. If you can stop sharing. Yes.
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much, Jean and Susan. We are going to go into breakouts, and we have about 10 minutes for breakout rooms now. Those who are on live stream on YouTube, you have a break while we do this exercise. We want to just discuss these two questions very quickly. What advice, since all of you representing school divisions have opened with blended or virtual learning in some case, what your experiences have been, give us some feedback, positive, what things that we need to address, things that we can help with. And we'll have facilitators, and I've already put you in breakout rooms. So the facilitators basically just keep time for us and identify someone who will speak, really one of those superintendents or organization members to represent. And when you see the 60-second timer to close out, you actually have 60 seconds left before you will be automatically brought back to the main room. All right. So let me make sure that I have everyone. assigned. So please make sure that you join your breakout room that's seen on your screen. Susan, if you could join your breakout room for me. Ernie, are you there? All right, I see folks are coming back. All right, Michael?
All right, so I guess thank you for participating in the breakout session. If yours was like mine, it was way too short. We were just getting to the heart of the matter, and I said, how much time's left? And they were like, 2 seconds. So anyway, sorry for the abrupt end to that breakout, guys. Anyway, I'd like to get a little feedback in from groups on what they heard in terms of what's needed to support virtual learning.
So group one, we had Lincoln from Pulaski and Ernie from Chesterfield to talk about, which is kind of interesting because they are very different school divisions. Lincoln noted that really the biggest thing they needed was training and more training and more training for their teachers and students and even the parents who are now kind of like the partners for virtual learning. In Pulaski, they have about a quarter of their students on Virtual Virginia, but they're also doing hybrid learning with some students coming in a couple of days a week, and then other students coming in the other couple of days a week. So they needed to get all of their teachers up to speed on Canvas and the parents and students up to speed on using the devices and being able to navigate around to the different places online. And then beyond just the use of devices and how to use Canvas for the teachers, they need more training for the students on how to be a good online learner, more training for the teachers on classroom management skills for online learning. So training. Ernie jumped in and talked about the fact that a lot of Chesterfield is doing a school-based virtual kind of a learning that is pretty much all synchronous. So it's kind of like based on the regular school schedule. And then a lot of the older students, however, have opted to do this traditional virtual learning experience where they, take a class here and part of it's asynchronous, some of it's synchronous. So addressing the discussion about training, Ernie mentioned that they had gotten their experts in the school division to come together and create these little mini sessions focused on very specific topics that teachers had need of and allowed for discussion. And those seem to be very helpful and popular.
Thanks, Jean. Let's go to another group.
I'll go ahead with our group. We talked to Greg Smith and Robbie, and Greg mentioned that they had a great start to the year, but one of the issues they came up with was students and parents wanting to use their own personal devices instead of the devices that the school is providing. But they felt confident that they could cover everybody with school devices, and so that's been one of the challenges there. Talked about training of parents and students who maybe weren't used to having a one-to-one device at home and just getting that on, and I think that's would be expected as a challenge, especially when everybody can't get together to do that training. And then we, in Robbie's neighborhood, satellite is prevalent as an internet source and is not working especially well. They are being very innovative in trying to get kids into school, picking kids up, driving MiFis in cars out to help spread the wealth of internet. They are backfilling when kids can't connect with some remote learning that's not necessarily digital. And one of the concerns there was balance for teachers. Teachers had to learn a lot very quickly, and that puts stress on our teachers, and just trying to find that balance as we approach this. We didn't get into the needs as much, but one of the issues that I think that they could speak of is really helping county leaders in their neck of the woods realize the importance of having broadband access, and this pandemic brings that to light for, I'm sure, a lot of folks.
Okay, thanks. Let's hear from another group.
Well, I can go. I thought David was going to have to do it, but David looks like I'm going to do it. So in my group, we had Holly Quinn, we had David Lyon from Manassas City. So we asked David about his experiences. They had a very positive start to the school year. There was different strategies or suggestions that he could use from that. And that was, they did early June planning. So they really started early for planning what was going to happen this school year. They had a task force as well to work on that. Another part that he thought was important was knowing what the needs were. So they went ahead and they looked at the stakeholders' needs and identified early what families and or students would need. They were already a one-to-one, so they thought that was very helpful, of course. And another important thread or component, I should say, was professional learning. They had different professional learning package, and then they staggered out the release of it. And a lot of it was self-paced, but they provided that professional learning to their educators so the teachers felt comfortable by the beginning of the school year. One thing he talked about when we talked about what could he need, although I will say that he was very complimentary about all the resources that DOE has provided to this point and in such a timely manner, and the quality is there, even though it was quickly done to meet the needs of the school divisions. So that was a great compliment to hear. I'd like to share that. Something that he did speak of was that he felt like there's disparate interpretations of asynchronous and synchronous, and that some more resources or guidance in that area. And I did share, which I can now share with the group, that we have some of that on our new virtual teaching and learning hub already available, and that we're looking to partner out perhaps with some higher educational institutions to maybe even develop further modules and resources in that area. So that's something that it was nice to know that that's a need that's identified and we're already working on it in some way. So that was great. And another need was the integration of Virtual Virginia modules to Schoology. They're, the time of that is taking a very long time. And I think that's something that I think DOE is working on. I said I'm not particularly in that area, but and he might reach out to Dr. Brian Mott and we can find out where he can get some help with that.
Okay, and Brian, do you want to provide any kind of quick update on that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. We are working with Schoology to try to make Virtual Virginia content available on that platform, because we know a lot of school divisions use Schoology. They're releasing it, and it's just taking Schoology some time to convert it. So we do meet with them. We met with them this morning at 9 o'clock. I missed today's update, but we're hopeful to see that most of that content come out really soon. They got backlogged for a little bit as the school year started, but hopefully we'll have some resources coming pretty quickly for those Schoology divisions.
Okay, would any other groups like to report out before we wrap up?
I kid, Michael. This is Garrett. We were in group 4. We had Jeanette from Craig County in there with us. And then I had Tom Lundquist, who's our Director of Technology in Stanton City Schools, in there as well. So in Craig County, Jeanette's advice was be flexible. They're still struggling with issues with access, but they recently put Wi-Fi in rescue squad buildings to try to alleviate some of that. But still, it's a struggle for families. It's a little different for us in Stanton City Schools. We were already working on bridging the digital divide as an equity initiative. So when the closure came, we already had plans to get refurbished Chromebooks out to families. And we have a partnership with T-Mobile that allowed us to get hotspots out to families too. So we were a little bit more well prepared. And then over the summer, we asked our students not to go off the grid, our teachers not to go off the grid, not to check out. And we have an internal professional development mechanism we call Stanton City Schools University. But for the summer, it was called Stanton City Schools University Virtual Edition. So we trained up teachers on the various platforms we were going to use, on tips and techniques and how to engage students in a virtual environment. Letting teachers know if you put the work in over the summer, you're going to be a lot less stressed out if we have to open in a hybrid or virtual model at the start of next school year. So I think we're relatively well prepared. We're on our 5th week now of virtual. One of the things that we've noticed that is a little bit alarming to us, well, it's very alarming to us, is we are looking at students with 2 or more Fs at our middle and high school. And right now, and it's not the end of the quarter yet, you know, and we know sometimes students don't start out the strongest at the beginning of the year. We have 3 times as many students with 2 or more Fs at both our high school and our middle school right now. And what we're getting kind of anecdotally is that it's not so much that the students don't check into class and participate. They're not getting the assignments done because they're usually assignments that would be done in real time with their teachers in the classroom. I mean, we're all synchronous with our virtual, but that part where, you know, the teacher releases and it's time for the students to take on the work, some of the students just aren't taking on the work. And we've heard from parents that, you know, we're struggling with motivation there. So we're trying to bring that. We got permission from the school board Monday. I was pushing to get back for the hybrid for their second quarter. We got permission to bring in identified students. So it's like all hands on deck trying to get some of these kids into the building for extra support. So even though I felt like we were relatively well prepared, we have found, just like James said, that the virtual model exacerbates the existing inequities in our school division and our community.
Right. Well, thank you very much. And Reggie, how many groups did we have?
That was it. The 4 groups have reported. Thank you.
Well, and I really do appreciate all of your input. One thing that kind of stands out to me is that it seems like everybody has created a lot of internal resources, you know, and to train their staff and parents and kids. And I'm wondering if we might be able to leverage Go Open in order to kind of house some of those training tools, be it videos or other resources that were created. And so, Gene, we may be able to be a hub for that while we're getting statewide PD developed as well. And so I'll be talking to you a little bit more about that as well, and kind of inviting people to add into the collective. I think that we can all solve this together, but it's going to be hard to do it individually.
Yeah.
So I really do appreciate everybody's time. Reggie, I'm going to turn it over to you to wrap it up and end it for us, though. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone for your time and participation today. We were able to gather that feedback. It was very positive, and ways that we can connect with you and continue to provide. We only have 2 meetings a year annually for this group. So we will look at second semester and bring some information back and maybe shape the agenda to allow more time for sharing and how we actually, hopefully at that time, made it through the pandemic. And you'll have more information and more knowledge, more experience with this first semester. Those of you who are viewing publicly, again, we want to make sure that you know your comments can be made to the mailbox until October 8th, virtualprograms@doe.virginia.gov. Meg, do you have any final words?
Just to say thank you so much. This was our first attempt at doing a virtual meeting for VLAC, and I think it was very successful, and I'm really proud of all the work, and I appreciate all the input that you have given us and your time. We know that you are extremely busy, and so thank you again for participating, and we look forward to even start planning our next meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, bye-bye.
Dr. Lane. Have a good day, everyone.